The text came in at 11:47 p.m. while I was fixing the busted lock on our back door. Huge traffic jam on Route 9. Going to be really late. Don't wait up. Hey. I stared at the message, wrench still in my hand. Route 9 at midnight on a Tuesday? In our sleepy New England mill town of Millbrook, the only traffic after 10 was the occasional drunk stumbling home from the Rusted Anchor. My name's Nick Bradbury, and I've been married to Alyssa for 8 years. I'm 39, used to swing hammers for a living until I started my own handyman business. Nothing fancy, but honest work that keeps food on the table and pays for our little craftsman house on Elm Street. Alyssa works downtown as an HR director for some tech startup, makes twice what I do, and never lets me forget it. But right now, none of that mattered. What mattered was the little blue dot on my phone screen. See, Alyssa doesn't know I can track her location. She agreed to it years ago after getting lost during a camping trip, then forgot all about it. I never mentioned it again because, well, why would I need to spy on my own wife? I opened the app. The blue dot wasn't anywhere near Route 9. It was sitting pretty at the Millbrook Motor Lodge, that rundown place by the river where truckers sometimes crash for the night. The same motel where, according to Mrs. Granger next door, all sorts of unsavory business goes on. My hands didn't shake as I took a screenshot. They should have, maybe. A decent husband would have felt his world crumble. But I felt something else entirely. Cold, calculating clarity. I typed back, "No problem. I'll forward your location to help with the traffic situation." The response came in 15 seconds flat. "Wait, what do you mean?" Too late. I'd already sent the screenshot to 3 places: Alyssa's mother Helen, our family group chat, and most importantly, to a phone number I'd found in Alyssa's contacts labeled Luke H., Regional Sales. Luke Harlan. I'd met him at Alyssa's company Christmas party, smug bastard with perfect teeth and a BMW. Married to some woman named Jennifer, 2 kids, lived in one of those McMansions up on Hill Street. My phone started buzzing immediately. Helen calling. I declined it and watched the family group chat explode with confused messages from Alyssa's sister and brother-in-law. Then I did something that felt surprisingly good. I opened my laptop and uploaded the screenshot to a secure cloud folder I'd created months ago for business files. Call it insurance. The front door slammed open 20 minutes later. Alyssa stood in the doorway, hair mussed, makeup smeared, wearing the same black dress she'd left for dinner with the girls in 6 hours earlier. "Nick, we need to talk." I looked up from my toolbox, wrench still in hand. "About the traffic jam? Must have cleared up pretty quick." Her face went through several expressions before settling on defiant. "I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can. You always were creative with stories." I stood up, all 6 feet of me, and watched her take an involuntary step back. "But right now, I'm more interested in your explanation to your mother. She's been calling for the past 20 minutes. Alyssa's phone buzzed, then again, then it started ringing. "Answer it," I said. "Tell Helen about the traffic jam. I'm sure she'll understand." That's when I saw it. The exact moment Alyssa realized she wasn't dealing with the same Nick who used to apologize for questioning her late nights. The same Nick who'd believed her stories about working weekends and business trips. This Nick had screenshots. This Nick had evidence. And this Nick was just getting started. She answered the phone with a shaking hand. "Hi, Mom." I walked past her to the kitchen, opened a bottle of beer, and listened to Alyssa try to explain why she was at a motel when she'd claimed to be stuck in traffic. Her voice got higher and more desperate with each lie. Mrs. Granger's porch light was on next door. The old woman was probably pressed against her window, soaking up every word of the drama. Good. Let the whole neighborhood hear. By the time Alyssa hung up, her face was pale and streaked with tears. "Nick, please, it's not what you think." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I took a long pull of beer and looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd worked double shifts to support through her MBA program, the woman who'd promised to love and cherish me until we were both old and gray. "What I think," I said slowly, "is that you've been playing me for a fool. What I think is that Lucas Harlan's wife Jennifer is going to be very interested in that screenshot I sent to his phone. What I think is that your little game just became everyone's business." The color drained from her face completely. "You didn't." "I did. And Alyssa? That was just the opening move." I finished my beer, rinsed the bottle in the sink, and headed for the stairs. "You can take the couch tonight. Or better yet, go back to the motel. I hear they have hourly rates. Behind me, Alyssa's phone started ringing again. This time, the caller ID said Jennifer H. I climbed the stairs with a smile on my face. For the first time in months, I was going to sleep really well. I woke up Wednesday morning to the sound of Alyssa crying in the kitchen. Not the pretty, delicate tears she used to get her way, but ugly, desperate sobs that told me Jennifer Harlan's phone call hadn't gone well. Good. I showered, dressed in my work clothes, and headed downstairs. Alyssa sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by tissues, her laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. She looked up when I entered, eyes red and swollen. "Nick, you have to help me fix this." I poured coffee into my travel mug, grabbed my lunch from the fridge. "Fix what exactly?" "Jennifer is threatening to call my boss. She's posting things on social media about me. She's..." "Telling the truth?" I suggested. "Yeah, that's inconvenient." Alyssa's face hardened. The tears stopped like someone had turned off a faucet. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won something?" I paused at the back door. "Have I?" "You have no idea what you've started." Her voice was different now. Cold. Calculating. This was the Alyssa I'd glimpsed in unguarded moments, the one who'd clawed her way up the corporate ladder by stepping on anyone who got in her way. "I tried to do this the easy way, but you want to play hardball? Fine, let's play." I should have been worried. The old Nick would have been. But the old Nick hadn't spent the last 3 hours researching divorce lawyers and moving money into a separate account I'd opened 6 months ago when I first started suspecting something was wrong. "Looking forward to it," I said, and left for work. My first job was replacing a water heater for Mrs. Patterson on Oak Street. She was Helen's bridge partner and had known me since I was a kid. The moment I walked into her basement, I knew the neighborhood gossip network was already in full swing. "Nicholas," she said, using the name only my mother and her generation called me. "I heard there was some excitement at your house last night." "Nothing I can't handle, Mrs. Patterson." She nodded approvingly. "Your father would be proud. He never did like that girl." Dad had been gone 3 years now, but Mrs. Patterson was right. He'd seen through Alyssa's act from day one, called her slick as a whistle and twice as hollow. I'd been too young and stupid to listen. I was elbow deep in copper pipes when my phone buzzed with notifications. Lots of them. The first was a Facebook post from Alyssa. "Sometimes the people closest to you turn out to be the most dangerous. Feeling grateful for friends who see the truth. Surviving abuse. Norris, stay strong." The post had dozens of comments already. Her friends and coworkers offering support, asking if she was safe, demanding to know what monster had hurt her. The second notification was from our bank. Someone had tried to transfer $5,000 from our joint savings account. The attempt had been denied due to insufficient funds. I smiled. Yesterday, after taking that screenshot, I'd moved most of our savings into my business account. Call it a precautionary measure. The third notification was from my business Facebook page. Someone had left a 1-star review. "Nicholas Bradbury is an abusive husband and dangerous man. Do not hire him. Women especially should stay away. He has serious anger issues and cannot be trusted." The review was from an account called Bree Caldwell, Alyssa's best friend and fellow HR director. They'd coordinated this attack, probably planned it while I was sleeping. I finished the water heater job, collected my payment, and drove to the Rusted Anchor. It was barely noon, but I needed to think, and I did my best thinking with a beer in my hand and my friend Marty across the table. Marty Henderson was a former private investigator who'd burned out on divorce cases and now spent his days fixing motorcycles and his evenings holding up the bar. He was also the only person in town who might understand the game Alyssa was playing. "She's trying to control the narrative," he said after I'd filled him in. "Classic move. Get out in front of the story, paint herself as the victim, isolate you from support. It's working. I've already gotten 3 calls from clients asking if the Facebook review is true." "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That my wife is having an affair and trying to destroy my reputation to cover her tracks." Marty nodded. "Good. Don't get defensive. Don't explain too much. Just state facts." He took a pull of his beer. "But Nick, you need to understand something. This is war now. She's not going to stop with Facebook reviews. She's going to escalate." As if summoned by his words, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Bradbury, this is Detective Morrow with Millbrook Police. We've received a complaint about you, and I'd like to ask you some questions." I met Detective Morrow at the police station an hour later. He was a thin, nervous man in his 50s, who'd always struck me as someone who'd become a cop in a small town because he couldn't handle the real thing. "Mr. Bradbury, your wife claims you've been stalking her. monitoring her movements without her consent and threatening her. I pulled out my phone and showed him the location sharing app. She agreed to this years ago. It's mutual. She can see my location too. As for threats, I'd like to know specifically what she claims I said. Morrow looked uncomfortable. She says you told her you were just getting started and that this was your opening move. She interpreted that as threatening. Detective, I sent evidence of my wife's affair to her family and her lover's wife. That's not illegal. And yes, I told her it was my opening move. Because it was. My next move is filing for divorce. She also claims you've isolated her financially. I moved money from our joint account to my business account after discovering her affair. Again, not illegal. The account is in both our names. I have every right to move that money. Morrow made some notes, clearly realizing he didn't have enough for any kind of charge. Mr. Bradbury, I'm going to give you some advice. Whatever's going on between you and your wife, keep it civil. Don't do anything that could be construed as harassment or intimidation. Detective, the only thing I've done is expose the truth. If that intimidates my wife, maybe she should have thought about that before cheating. I left the police station feeling oddly energized. Alyssa had played her first real card, trying to get me arrested, and it had failed. Now it was my turn. I drove to Alyssa's office building downtown. The tech startup, Innovative Solutions, occupied the third floor of a converted mill building. I'd been there for Christmas parties and company picnics, knew the layout, knew the people. The receptionist, a young woman named Katie, looked up nervously when I walked in. Hi, Mr. Bradbury. Is everything okay? Just fine, Katie. Is my wife available? She's in a meeting with Mr. Davidson, the company owner. But I can... that's okay. I'll wait. I sat in the reception area and pulled out my phone. Time for my next move. The family group chat had been quiet since last night's explosion. I opened it and typed, since there seems to be some confusion about recent events, I wanted to share some additional context. Then I uploaded 3 screenshots. Alyssa's Facebook post about surviving abuse, the fake review Bree had left on my business page, and a text message Alyssa had sent me that morning. You're going to regret this. I'll destroy you. I added, these are from the victim of abuse. Draw your own conclusions. The response was immediate. Alyssa's sister. What the hell, Alyssa? Her brother-in-law. This is messed up. Helen. Alyssa Marie Bradbury, you call me right now. The conference room door opened, and Alyssa walked out with her boss, a balding man in his 60s who'd always struck me as decent enough. They both stopped when they saw me. Nick, Davidson said carefully, this is unexpected. Mr. Davidson, I wanted to personally assure you that despite what you may have heard, I have never and would never threaten or abuse my wife. What I have done is discover her affair and respond accordingly. Alyssa's face went white. Nick, don't... I have documentation of everything, including her attempts to frame me as abusive to cover her tracks. I thought you should know the kind of person you have running your HR department. Davidson looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. This is a personal matter between you two. It became a professional matter when she used company resources to coordinate attacks on my business reputation. I pulled out my phone and showed him the timestamp on Bree's fake review. Posted at 10:30 a.m. on a Wednesday, during work hours, from someone who's never been my customer but is my wife's close friend and colleague. That's enough, Alyssa said. Security. But Davidson held up a hand. Alyssa, perhaps you should take the rest of the day off. We can discuss this tomorrow. I could see the panic in her eyes. Her job was everything to her. Status, income, identity. The thought of losing it was more terrifying than losing our marriage. Thank you for your time, Mr. Davidson, I said. I hope this won't reflect poorly on your company. After all, you can't control what employees do in their personal lives. I walked out, leaving Alyssa standing in the lobby, her carefully constructed world starting to crumble around her. My phone was buzzing with messages by the time I reached my truck. The family group chat was in chaos. Helen demanding explanations, Alyssa's siblings choosing sides, and underneath it all, a private message from someone I didn't expect. Jennifer Harlan. We need to talk. I met Jennifer Harlan at a coffee shop on the other side of town, away from the gossip mill that was downtown Millbrook. She was a petite blonde in her mid-30s, the kind of woman who probably spent her mornings at yoga class and her afternoons volunteering at her kids' school. The kind of woman who'd never expected to be sitting across from her husband's lover's spouse, comparing notes on betrayal. I found more, she said without preamble, sliding a manila folder across the table. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even a jewelry purchase from last month that I definitely didn't receive. I opened the folder. Lucas had been busy. 3 different hotels over the past 2 months, all charged to a credit card Jennifer had access to but apparently never checked. Expensive dinners at places I couldn't afford on my best day. And a receipt from Tiffany & Co. for a necklace that cost more than I made in a month. Did you confront him? Jennifer's laugh was bitter. Oh, I confronted him. He tried to deny everything until I showed him your screenshot. Then he admitted to the affair but swore it was over. Said it was a mistake, begged for forgiveness, promised to do anything to save our marriage. But I hired a private investigator yesterday. Lucas met your wife for lunch at the Riverside Inn 2 hours after he swore it was over. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos. Lucas and Alyssa at a corner table, holding hands, her wearing a necklace that matched the Tiffany receipt. I want them both to pay, Jennifer said quietly, and I think you do too. I studied her face. Beneath the suburban mom exterior was something harder. Something that reminded me of Alyssa, actually, but pointed in a different direction. What did you have in mind? Lucas is speaking at the Chamber of Commerce dinner Friday night. Big presentation about regional sales strategies. Half the town's business community will be there, including his boss from corporate. And? Jennifer smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. I'm going to be there too, with evidence. Lots of evidence, including some things Lucas doesn't know I found. She pulled out another folder. My private investigator is very thorough. Turns out your wife isn't Lucas's first affair. There was a woman in Springfield last year, and another one in Hartford the year before that. I have photos, hotel records, everything. I whistled low. You've been busy? I've been married to a liar for 12 years. I'm done being the naive wife who doesn't ask questions. She leaned forward. But I need something from you. What? Your wife has been texting Lucas, trying to coordinate their stories. I need to know what she's planning. I thought about it. Alyssa's phone was locked, but I knew her patterns, her passwords. She was creature of habit, used the same few combinations for everything. I might be able to help with that. Good, because I have a feeling they're planning something for Friday night, something to discredit both of us before I can expose them. She was right to be suspicious. When I got home that evening, Alyssa was on the phone in our bedroom, door closed, voice low. I could hear the urgency in her tone even through the walls. I went to my workshop in the basement and pulled out an old baby monitor I'd installed when we were trying to get pregnant 3 years ago. The receiver still worked, and I'd never removed the transmitter from our bedroom. Can't let her ruin everything, Alyssa was saying. Your career, my job, everything we've worked for. Lucas's voice crackled through the speaker. Jennifer's lost her mind. She's threatening to show up Friday night with some kind of evidence. We need to get ahead of this. I've been thinking about that. What if we flip the script? What if we're the victims here? What do you mean? Think about it. 2 unstable spouses, driven to desperate measures by their failing marriages. Jennifer's clearly having some kind of breakdown, hiring private investigators, stalking us. And Nick's already shown he's capable of harassment and intimidation. My hands clenched into fists. You want to frame them? I want to survive this. Lucas, if your wife destroys your career, where does that leave us? If Nick ruins my reputation, what kind of life can we have together? Together. So it wasn't just an affair. They were planning a future. What are you suggesting? Friday night, before Jennifer can make her big scene, we make ours. We go to the police, file restraining orders, claim we're being stalked and threatened. We have evidence. Nick's already been questioned by the police once, and Jennifer's behavior speaks for itself. That could work. It will work, but we need documentation. I'm going to provoke Nick into threatening me again, record it this time. You need to do the same with Jennifer. I'd heard enough. I turned off the monitor and sat in my workshop, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, planning my next move. Thursday morning, Alyssa tried to pick a fight over breakfast. Started with small complaints. I'd left dishes in the sink, hadn't taken out the trash, was creating a hostile environment in our own home. You're recording this conversation, aren't you? I said calmly, not looking up from my coffee. She froze. What? The phone in your pocket. It's been recording since you walked into the kitchen. You're trying to provoke me into saying something threatening so you can play victim again. You're paranoid. I stood up and walked to the counter, picked up a notepad, and wrote, I know about your plan for Friday night. I know about the restraining orders. I know you're not just having an affair, you're planning to leave me for Lucas. Her face went pale as she read. I wrote, Turn off the recording and we can talk like adults. Keep playing games and I'll make sure everyone at that chamber dinner hears exactly what kind of person you really are. Alyssa pulled out her phone and stopped the recording app. How did you? I've been underestimating you for years, I said. You've been underestimating me for longer. The difference is, I learn from my mistakes. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Oh, and Alyssa, you might want to check your text messages. Jennifer Harlan sent you something interesting. I'd asked Jennifer to send Alyssa a screenshot of Lucas with one of his previous affairs. Nothing threatening, just a photo with the message. Thought you should know what kind of man you're destroying your marriage for. Let them try to coordinate their stories around that. My phone rang as I was driving to my first job of the day. Marty. Nick, we need to meet. I found something. An hour later, we sat in his motorcycle shop while he showed me what his old PI contacts had dug up. Lucas Harlan isn't just a cheater, Marty said. He's a fraud. Look at this. The documents showed a pattern of inflated sales reports, falsified expense accounts, and what looked like embezzlement from his company's regional budget. How did you get this? Jennifer hired a good investigator. Guy used to work white-collar crime before going private. He knows what to look for. Marty grinned. Turns out Lucas has been skimming money for years to fund his lifestyle. Those expensive hotels and dinners, paid for with company funds disguised as business expenses. Does Jennifer know? She knows, and she's planning to hand it all over to Lucas's corporate office right after she destroys him at the chamber dinner. I studied the documents. This changes things? How so? Alyssa doesn't know Lucas is a criminal. She thinks she's trading up, leaving the blue-collar husband for the successful businessman. Wait until she finds out her Prince Charming is going to prison. You going to tell her? I thought about it. No, I'm going to let her find out the same way everyone else does. Friday night, in front of the whole town. That's cold, Nick. Good. I'm done being the nice guy. That evening, I put the final pieces of my plan in place. I'd been documenting everything, screenshots, recordings, financial records, but I needed one more thing. I waited until Alyssa was in the shower, then used her laptop to access her email account. Her password was the same one she'd used for years. Success 123. Some things never change. What I found there was better than I'd hoped. Dozens of emails between Alyssa and Lucas planning their future together, discussions about divorcing their spouses, combining their assets, maybe moving to another state where Lucas could start fresh in his career. But the best part was an email from 3 days ago, after Jennifer had confronted Lucas. Alyssa's response to his panic. Don't worry about Jennifer. She's just a suburban housewife who's never had to fight for anything. She'll fold as soon as we apply pressure, and Nick's too stupid to see this coming until it's too late. I forwarded the email to my personal account, then deleted it from her sent folder. Let her wonder how her private thoughts became public knowledge. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood. Alyssa left early for work, claiming she had meetings all day. I knew better. She was meeting with Lucas to finalize their strategy for the evening. I spent the day on routine jobs, but my mind was elsewhere. By tonight, everything would be out in the open. No more lies, no more games, no more pretending our marriage was anything other than a battlefield. At 5 o'clock, I went home and put on my only good suit. If I was going to watch my wife's world collapse, I was going to look respectable doing it. The Chamber of Commerce dinner was held at the Millbrook Community Center, a converted warehouse that served as the town's event space. By the time I arrived, the parking lot was full of expensive cars and the kind of people who thought they ran the town. I spotted Lucas immediately, tall, confident, working the room like the successful businessman he pretended to be. Alyssa stood beside him, playing the role of supportive colleague, but I could see the tension in her posture. Jennifer was there too, sitting alone at a table near the back, a briefcase beside her chair. She caught my eye and nodded slightly. The evening was about to get very interesting. The dinner portion of the evening dragged on with the usual small-town political theater, the mayor discussing infrastructure projects, the chamber president thanking sponsors, local business owners congratulating themselves on another successful year. I sat at a table near the middle of the room, nursing a beer and watching Lucas charm the crowd. He was good at it, I had to admit. Smooth handshakes, genuine seeming interest in everyone's problems, the kind of easy confidence that came from years of practice. No wonder Alyssa had fallen for his act. She was working the room too, playing the part of the successful professional woman. Her black dress was new, probably another gift from Lucas, and she'd had her hair done that afternoon. She looked beautiful, polished, every inch the woman who'd convinced herself she deserved better than a blue-collar husband. They were careful not to interact too much, maintaining the pretense of being mere colleagues. But I caught the glances they shared, the way Lucas's hand lingered on her shoulder when he leaned in to whisper something during the mayor's speech. At 8:30, Lucas was introduced as the evening's keynote speaker. He took the podium with confidence, launching into a presentation about regional sales strategies and market expansion. The crowd listened politely, some taking notes, others checking their phones. I was watching Jennifer. She sat perfectly still, her briefcase unopened, waiting for the right moment. But something was wrong. Lucas was supposed to be nervous, knowing his wife was there with evidence of his affairs. Instead, he seemed relaxed, almost cocky. That's when I realized they'd outmaneuvered us. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your email, now. Jay." I opened my email app and found a message from Jennifer sent 5 minutes earlier. "They know. Lucas confronted me this morning with a restraining order. I'm not allowed within 500 feet of him. If I try to make a scene tonight, I'll be arrested." My stomach dropped. Alyssa and Lucas had moved first, filing emergency restraining orders claiming harassment and stalking. Jennifer was neutralized, and I was probably next. I looked around the room, suddenly aware that several people were watching me. The police chief sat 2 tables over, his hand resting casually near his radio. Detective Morrow stood by the exit, trying to look inconspicuous. They were ready for me to make a scene, ready to paint me as the unhinged husband who couldn't accept his marriage was over. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They thought I was stupid. I stood up slowly, walked to the men's room, and called Marty. "They got restraining orders," I said quietly. "Jennifer's been neutralized. They're waiting for me to do something stupid so they can have me arrested." "What's your play?" "I'm going to give them exactly what they expect, but not the way they expect it." I hung up and returned to the dining room. Lucas was wrapping up his presentation to polite applause. As he stepped away from the podium, I stood up. "Mr. Harlan, I have a question." The room went quiet. Lucas smiled, but I could see the wariness in his eyes. "Of course. What can I help you with?" I walked toward the front of the room, aware that every eye was on me. "I'm curious about your expense management strategies, specifically how you justify charging personal entertainment to corporate accounts." His smile faltered. "I'm not sure what you mean." "I mean the hotel receipts, the restaurant charges, the jewelry purchases, all charged to your company credit card, all for personal use." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lucas's boss, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, leaned forward in her chair. "That's a serious accusation," Lucas said, "and completely false." "Is it?" I pulled out my phone and connected it to the room's projection system, a trick I'd learned setting up AV equipment for community events. "Because I have documentation." The first image appeared on the screen. A hotel receipt from the Riverside Inn, charged to Lucas's corporate card, for a room he'd shared with my wife. "This is harassment," Lucas said, but his voice had lost its confidence. The second image, a receipt from Tiffany & Co., also charged to his corporate card, for the necklace currently around Alyssa's neck. "You're stalking me." Alyssa stood up, playing her part. "Everyone can see he's having some kind of breakdown." The third image, Lucas's falsified expense report, claiming the hotel stay was for a business meeting that never happened. "Actually," I said calmly, "what everyone can see is a pattern of embezzlement and fraud. Would you like to see more?" Lucas's boss was on her feet now, her face thunderous. "Lucas, what the hell is this?" "It's a desperate man trying to destroy my reputation," Lucas said, but he was sweating now. "No," said a voice from the back of the room. "It's the truth." Everyone turned. Jennifer Harlan walked slowly toward the front, her briefcase in her hand. "Mrs. Harlan," Detective Morrow stepped forward. "You're in violation of a restraining order." "Actually, I'm not." She pulled a document from her briefcase. "The restraining order was vacated this afternoon when I provided evidence to the court that it was obtained fraudulently, evidence of perjury in the original filing." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "Everything Mr. Bradbury just showed you is real, but it's just the beginning. The next 20 minutes were brutal. Jennifer had documentation going back 3 years, falsified reports, embezzled funds, tax evasion, and evidence of multiple affairs that Lucas had funded with stolen money. But the coup de grace was the recording she played through the sound system, a phone conversation between Lucas and Alyssa from that morning, discussing how to neutralize Jennifer and me before we could expose them. The restraining orders were fake. Alyssa's voice filled the room. "But they'll buy us time to get out of town. Once this blows over, we can start fresh somewhere else." "What about the money I took from the company?" "They'll never trace it all, and by the time they do, we'll be long gone." The room erupted. Lucas's boss was screaming at him. The police chief was on his radio calling for backup. Half the crowd was on their phones, spreading the news to anyone who'd listen. In the chaos, I found myself face to face with Alyssa. Her carefully constructed mask had finally slipped, revealing the calculating woman underneath. "You think you've won," she hissed. "You have no idea what you've done to yourself. I'll destroy you for this." "You already tried," I said quietly. "The fake abuse claims, the restraining orders, the coordinated attack on my business. You threw everything you had at me, and it wasn't enough. This isn't over." "Yes, it is. Look around, Alyssa. Your lover's going to prison. Your reputation is destroyed. Your job is gone. And everyone in this room now knows exactly what kind of person you are." She looked around the room, seeing the faces staring back at her with disgust and contempt. The same people who'd respected her an hour ago now saw her as a fraud and a homewrecker. "I loved you," she said, and for a moment she almost sounded like the woman I'd married. "No, you didn't. You loved what I could do for you. The stable home, the steady income, the respectability. But you never loved me. If you had, none of this would have happened." Detective Morrow appeared at my elbow. "Mr. Bradbury, I need to ask you some questions about how you obtained this evidence." "All legally obtained," I said. "Financial records provided by Mrs. Harlan, who had legitimate access as Lucas's spouse. Location data from an app my wife agreed to share. Screenshots of public social media posts. Nothing illegal about any of it." "And the recording?" Jennifer stepped forward. "Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. I was part of that conversation, so I had every right to record it." Morrow looked frustrated, but nodded. "You're free to go. Both of you." As I walked toward the exit, I passed Lucas being handcuffed by 2 state troopers. His boss was already on the phone with corporate security, and I could hear her discussing criminal charges and civil recovery actions. Alyssa stood alone in the middle of the room, abandoned by her lover and shunned by the community she'd tried so hard to impress. She caught my eye as I reached the door. "Nick, wait." I turned back. "What happens now?" "Now? Now you figure out how to rebuild your life without me, just like I had to figure out how to rebuild mine without you." "I have nowhere to go." "You should have thought of that before you chose Lucas over our marriage." I walked out into the cool night air, leaving behind the wreckage of the life we'd built together. My phone was buzzing with messages, friends, family, even potential clients who'd heard about the evening's events. But I ignored them all. For the first time in months, I felt truly free. The coordinates of payback had led me exactly where I needed to be. The story hit social media before I even made it home from the community center. Someone had live-streamed the whole confrontation, and by Friday night, the Millbrook scandal was trending locally. My phone buzzed constantly with calls, texts, and social media notifications. I ignored them all and went to bed. Saturday morning brought a different kind of chaos. Mrs. Granger was on my front porch at 7 a.m. with a casserole and an appetite for gossip. "Nicholas, dear, I brought you some comfort food. I figured you might not feel like cooking." I accepted the casserole because Mrs. Granger's cooking was legendary and because I knew she'd stand on my porch until I gave her the details she was craving. "Thank you, Mrs. Granger. That's very thoughtful." I saw Alyssa leave this morning with 2 suitcases. Is she staying with her mother? I honestly don't know where she's staying, and I don't particularly care. Mrs. Granger's eyes lit up. She'd been waiting 8 years for this marriage to implode, and now she had front row seats to the aftermath. "Well, I think you're better off without her. That girl always thought she was too good for this neighborhood." My phone rang. Helen, Alyssa's mother. I declined the call. "Her mother's been trying to reach me all morning," I told Mrs. Granger. "Probably wants to blame me for ruining Alyssa's life." "Nonsense. That girl ruined her own life the moment she decided to step out on her marriage. Your father raised you right, Nicholas. You don't deserve what she put you through." After Mrs. Granger left, I sat in my kitchen reading the local news coverage on my laptop. The Millbrook Gazette had published a detailed account of Friday night's events, complete with photos and quotes from witnesses. The headline read, "Local business leaders exposed in fraud and adultery scandal." Lucas had been arrested on multiple felony charges. His company had issued a statement about conducting a thorough investigation into allegations of financial impropriety. Translation: they were going to throw him under the bus and recover every penny they could. Alyssa hadn't been charged with anything criminal, but her reputation was destroyed. The article mentioned that she'd been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into whether she'd used company resources to coordinate the attack on my business. My phone rang again. This time it was Marty. "You see the news?" "Hard to miss it." "You doing okay?" "Better than I've been in months, actually. It's weird. I thought I'd feel angry or vindicated or something. Mostly I just feel tired." "That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline for days. Now that it's over, the crash hits." "Is it over, though? I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "What other shoe?" "Lucas is going to prison. Alyssa's career is finished. You've got documentation of everything in case she tries to cause problems in the divorce. What else could happen? As if summoned by his question, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see a man in an expensive suit holding a briefcase. Hang on, Marty. I think I'm about to find out. The man introduced himself as Richard Thornton, Alyssa's divorce attorney. He was exactly what I'd expected. Polished, condescending, the kind of lawyer who charged $500 an hour to intimidate people. Mr. Bradbury, I represent your wife in the dissolution of your marriage. I'd like to discuss settlement terms. Settlement terms? She's the one who cheated. In Massachusetts, that affects property division. My client disputes your characterization of her relationship with Mr. Harlan. She claims it was an emotional affair that never became physical. I almost laughed. Your client was caught at a motel. There are hotel receipts. She's wearing jewelry he bought her. Circumstantial evidence. Nothing that proves physical adultery occurred. What does she want? Thornton opened his briefcase and pulled out a document. Half of all marital assets, including your business, this house, and all retirement accounts. She's also seeking alimony of $3,000 per month for 5 years. She wants me to pay her for cheating on me? She's entitled to maintain the lifestyle she became accustomed to during the marriage. I took the document and pretended to read it while I considered my options. Alyssa was making one last play, trying to use the legal system to extract a victory from her defeat. I'll need to review this with my attorney, I said finally. Of course. But Mr. Bradbury, I should warn you, if this goes to trial, we'll be presenting evidence of your stalking behavior, your harassment of my client and Mr. Harlan, and your public humiliation of a woman who was simply trying to end an unhappy marriage. Your client tried to frame me for abuse. She filed false police reports. She coordinated attacks on my business reputation. If she wants to go to trial, I have plenty of evidence to present too. Thornton's smile faltered slightly. Perhaps we can reach a reasonable compromise. Here's my compromise. She gets nothing. No money, no property, no alimony. She can take her personal belongings and whatever she can prove she owned before our marriage. Everything else stays with me. That's completely unreasonable. So is asking me to pay alimony to a woman who destroyed our marriage. But I'll tell you what. I'll give her one thing. What's that? A recommendation for a good therapist. She's going to need one. After Thornton left, I called my own lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia Walsh, who'd handled my father's estate. She listened to my summary of events with professional detachment. Nick, I have to ask, did you do anything illegal in gathering this evidence? Nothing illegal. Unethical maybe, but not illegal. Good, because Alyssa's attorney is going to try to paint you as a stalker and a harasser. We need to be prepared for that. What are my chances? With the evidence you have? Excellent. Massachusetts courts don't look kindly on adultery, especially when it's coupled with fraud and false accusations. The worst-case scenario is you end up paying minimal alimony for a short period. And the best case? She gets nothing and pays your legal fees. That afternoon, I drove to the Rusted Anchor to meet Marty and decompress. The bar was busier than usual for a Saturday afternoon. Apparently, half the town wanted to discuss Friday night's drama over drinks. I was barely through the door when the bartender, a grizzled old-timer named Pete, called out, "Nick, first beer's on the house. Hell of a thing you did Friday night." A cheer went up from the regulars. I found myself surrounded by people wanting to shake my hand, pat my back, and buy me drinks. It was surreal. I'd gone from social pariah to local hero in the span of 24 hours. "Always knew that wife of yours was trouble," said Jim Morrison, who owned the hardware store. "Too slick by half." "Takes guts to stand up in front of the whole town like that," added Mary Sullivan, whose husband ran the auto repair shop. "Most men would have just taken it and kept quiet." I accepted their congratulations graciously, but inside I felt oddly empty. These people were celebrating my victory, but all I could think about was the 8 years I'd wasted on a marriage that had been built on lies. Marty found me at the bar an hour later, nursing my third beer and staring at the television. "You look like hell for a guy who just won the war." "Do I? Because I'm not sure what I won, exactly. My marriage is over. My wife hates me. Half the town is gossiping about my personal life. What exactly am I celebrating?" "Your freedom, your self-respect, the fact that you didn't let them destroy you." "I suppose?" "Nick, you did something most people don't have the courage to do. You fought back. You refused to be a victim. That matters." "Does it? Because right now I just feel like everyone involved lost something. Lucas lost his career and his freedom. Jennifer lost her marriage. Alyssa lost everything she worked for. I lost 8 years of my life and any faith I had in people." Marty was quiet for a moment. "You know what your problem is?" "What?" You're a decent person. You don't like hurting people, even when they deserve it. That's not a weakness, Nick. That's what separates you from them. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Jennifer. Can we talk? I showed Marty the message. What do you think she wants? Only one way to find out. I met Jennifer at the same coffee shop where we'd first planned our strategy. She looked different, tired, older, but somehow more solid, like she'd finally stopped pretending to be someone she wasn't. How are you holding up? I asked. Better than I expected. I filed for divorce yesterday. Lucas is going to fight it, but with everything that's come out, he doesn't have much leverage. What about your kids? They're staying with my sister while I figure things out. They're too young to understand most of this, thank God. I'm sorry it came to this, Jennifer. I know this wasn't the outcome you wanted. Actually, it was exactly the outcome I wanted. I wanted Lucas exposed for what he really is. I wanted everyone to see through his act. Mission accomplished. And now? Now I rebuild. Sell the house, move somewhere fresh, start over. What about you? I thought about it. Same thing, I guess. Though I'm not sure I want to leave Millbrook. This is home, for better or worse. Even after everything that's happened? Especially after everything that's happened. I'm not going to let Alyssa chase me out of my own town. Jennifer smiled. Good for you. Don't let them win by default. What will you do about money? I assume Lucas's assets are going to be tied up in legal proceedings for a while. I'll manage. I have some savings he didn't know about, and I'm going back to work. I was a marketing director before the kids came along. Time to dust off the resume. If you need a reference for your character, let me know. After what you did Friday night, I'd recommend you for anything. Thanks. And Nick, what you did took real courage. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. After Jennifer left, I sat in my truck in the coffee shop parking lot, trying to figure out what came next. For months, my entire focus had been on exposing Alyssa's affair and protecting myself from her attacks. Now that the war was over, I felt strangely directionless. My phone rang. Patricia Walsh, my lawyer. Nick, I just got off the phone with Alyssa's attorney. They want to settle. What are they offering? She'll accept $25,000 and waive all claims to alimony and property division. That's a far cry from half of everything and $3,000 a month. Friday night changed the equation. Thornton knows he can't win at trial, not with the evidence against his client. This is damage control. What do you recommend? Take it. $25,000 is cheap for a clean break. You could spend that much in legal fees if this drags on. And if I refuse? Then we go to trial, and she probably gets nothing, but trials are expensive and unpredictable. Sometimes it's better to pay a small price for certainty. I thought about it. $25,000 to make Alyssa disappear from my life forever. It was probably the best money I'd ever spend. Do it. But I want the agreement to include a non-disclosure clause. She doesn't get to write a book or sell her story to the tabloids. I'll make sure that's included. That evening, I sat on my front porch with a beer, watching the sunset over Millbrook. Mrs. Granger was in her garden, pretending to weed while actually keeping an eye on my house. A few neighbors had walked by during the day, some offering support, others just curious about the local celebrity. My phone had finally stopped buzzing with calls and messages. The initial frenzy was fading, and life was slowly returning to normal, or whatever passed for normal in a town where everyone knew everyone else's business. I thought about Alyssa, wherever she was staying, probably planning her next move. She was resilient, I'd give her that. She'd land on her feet eventually, find another job, maybe another husband to support her ambitions, but she'd never again have the kind of life she'd taken for granted as my wife. And I was okay with that. More than okay, actually. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The coordinates of payback had led me home to myself. 2 weeks after the chamber dinner, I thought the worst was behind me. The divorce papers were signed, Alyssa had taken her settlement and disappeared, and I was starting to rebuild my life. I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. The call came on a Tuesday evening while I was replacing the kitchen faucet, a job I'd been putting off for months. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. Nick, it's me. We need to talk. Alyssa sounded different, desperate. The polished confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and frantic. We have nothing to talk about. The divorce is final. Please, just give me 10 minutes. There are things you don't understand, things I couldn't tell you before. What things? Not over the phone. Meet me at the old mill tonight, 11 o'clock. The Millbrook Mill had been abandoned for 15 years, ever since the textile company moved operations overseas. It sat on the riverbank like a monument to the town's industrial past, all broken windows and rusted machinery. Not exactly the place for a friendly conversation. Why there? Because it's private. Because I need to explain what really happened. And because... Her voice broke. Because I'm in trouble, Nick. Real trouble. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her, but I wasn't stupid about it. I called Marty and told him where I was going. That's a bad idea, Nick. Whatever she wants, it's not going to be good for you. Probably not, but I need to hear what she has to say. If I don't show up, she'll just keep calling, keep trying to drag me back into her drama. You want backup? Stay by your phone. If you don't hear from me by midnight, call the police. The mill parking lot was empty when I arrived, except for a familiar silver sedan parked in the shadows. Alyssa's car, the one I'd helped her pick out 3 years ago. I sat in my truck for a moment, studying the building. Most of the windows were boarded up, but I could see light flickering in one of the upper floors. I grabbed a flashlight from my toolbox and headed for the main entrance. The door was chained shut, but someone had cut through the chain recently. The metal ends were bright and clean. Inside, the mill was a maze of empty rooms and abandoned equipment. My footsteps echoed off the concrete floors as I followed the sound of voices toward the back of the building. Not just Alyssa's voice, someone else was with her. I climbed a rusted staircase to the second floor, following the light. At the end of a long corridor, I found them in what used to be the supervisor's office. Alyssa sat behind an old desk, illuminated by battery-powered lanterns. And standing beside her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, was Lucas Harlan. "Hello, Nick," Alyssa said. "Thank you for coming." I stayed in the doorway, keeping my options open. "I thought you were in jail," I said to Lucas. "Released on bail, pending trial. My lawyer worked out a plea agreement." "How nice for you. What do you want, Alyssa?" She stood up slowly, and I could see she'd been crying. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled. This wasn't the composed woman who'd tried to destroy my reputation. "I want to explain why I did what I did, and I want to ask for your help." "My help? After everything you put me through? I know how it looks. I know you hate me, but there are things you don't know. Things that made me desperate." "Such as?" Lucas stepped forward. "She's pregnant, Nick." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at Alyssa, looking for confirmation. "It's true," she said quietly. 10 weeks. "Congratulations. I assume Lucas is the father?" "That's what we need to talk about. Nick, the timing, it could be yours." I felt the world tilt sideways. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't know whose baby this is. It could be Lucas's, it could be yours. The timeline overlaps." I thought back to our last intimate encounter, nearly 3 months ago. One of those rare nights when Alyssa had actually seemed interested in her husband instead of her phone. "You're lying. You're trying to manipulate me again." "I'm not lying. I took 3 pregnancy tests. I've been to the doctor. This is real, Nick." Lucas looked uncomfortable. "She told me it was mine. But when she calculated the dates..." "So what do you want from me?" I asked. "I want you to take a paternity test, and if the baby is yours, I want us to try to work things out." I stared at her in disbelief. "Work things out? Alyssa, you cheated on me, tried to frame me for abuse, destroyed my reputation, and put me through hell. And now you want to reconcile because you might be carrying my child? I know I made mistakes." "Mistakes? You call what you did mistakes?" I was confused, scared. My job was stressful, our marriage was struggling, and Lucas made me feel special. I never meant for it to go so far. But it did go that far. You chose him over me, remember? You were planning to leave town together. That was before I found out about the baby. Everything changed when I realized what I might be throwing away. I looked at Lucas, who was studying his shoes. "And what about you? Ready to play daddy to another man's child?" "If the baby is mine, I'll take responsibility. But if it's not..." He shrugged. "I've got enough problems already." How romantic. True love at its finest. Alyssa moved closer to me. "Nick, I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But this baby didn't ask to be born into this mess. If it's yours, don't you want to be part of its life? If it's mine, I'll support my child. But that doesn't mean I'll support you. We're done, Alyssa. That doesn't change just because you're pregnant. But we could try again. Start fresh. I've learned from my mistakes." "Have you?" "Because from where I'm standing, this looks like another manipulation. You're in trouble, your career is ruined, your reputation is shot, your lover is going to prison, so you're trying to use a pregnancy to get me back." "That's not what this is." "Isn't it? Tell me, Alyssa, when did you first suspect you were pregnant?" She hesitated. "About a week ago." A week ago, right around the time your settlement money ran out and you realized you had nowhere to go. Nick, please. No, I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being the guy you come back to when your other plans fall through. I turned to leave, but Lucas stepped in front of me. You can't just walk away from this. Watch me. What if the baby is yours? What kind of man abandons his own child? The kind of man who's been lied to and manipulated one too many times. But don't worry, Lucas. I'll take the paternity test, and if the child is mine, I'll take full custody and raise it myself. Alyssa's face went pale. You can't do that. Can't I? You're unemployed, homeless, and have a history of making poor decisions. I'm a stable business owner with a clean record and a house. Which one of us do you think a judge would favor? You bastard. I learned from the best. I pushed past Lucas and headed for the stairs. Behind me, I could hear them arguing, their voices echoing through the empty building. I was halfway to my truck when I heard footsteps running after me. Nick, wait! Alyssa caught up to me in the parking lot, breathing hard. You can't mean what you said in there, about taking the baby away from me. Try me. I'm its mother. And I might be its father. The difference is I won't use our child as a pawn in some game. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're doing exactly what you've always done. Whatever it takes to get what you want, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. She started crying again, but this time it seemed genuine. I'm scared, Nick. I don't know what to do. I have no job, no money, nowhere to go. Lucas won't even return my calls now that he knows the baby might not be his. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You should have thought about that before you decided to blow up your life. I know I screwed up, but I can't undo it now. All I can do is try to make things right. Some things can't be made right, Alyssa. Some mistakes are permanent. So what happens now? Now you figure out how to take care of yourself and your baby without me. And if the baby is yours, then we'll work out custody arrangements through our lawyers. But Alyssa, if you try to use this child to manipulate me, if you try to keep me from being a father, I will make what happened at the chamber dinner look like a friendly disagreement. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving her standing alone in the mill parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I could see Lucas's car was gone. He'd abandoned her too, probably the moment he realized the baby might not be his. 3 weeks later, the paternity test results came back. The baby wasn't mine. I felt a complex mix of relief and disappointment. Relief that I wouldn't be tied to Alyssa for the rest of my life, disappointment that I wouldn't be a father after all. Marty found me at the Rusted Anchor that evening, staring into a beer and processing the news. How you doing? Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of me is glad I can finally close this chapter and move on. Part of me is sad that the baby isn't mine. You'd have been a good father? Maybe, but not under these circumstances. That kid deserves better than parents who hate each other. What about Alyssa? You heard from her since the results came back? She left town yesterday, packed up and moved to Boston, according to Mrs. Granger. Probably going to try to start over somewhere nobody knows her story. And Lucas? Still facing trial. His plea agreement fell through when they found more evidence of embezzlement. He's looking at serious prison time. So it's really over. Yeah, it's really over. I finished my beer and looked around the bar. The same faces, the same conversations, the same small-town rhythms that had defined my life for 39 years. But something was different now. I was different. You know what the strangest part is? I said to Marty. What's that? I don't hate her anymore. I should, after everything she put me through, but mostly I just feel sorry for her. She had a good life, and she threw it away for nothing. That's growth, my friend. Is it, or is it just exhaustion? Does it matter? Either way, you're free. He was right. For the first time in years, I was truly free. Free from lies, free from manipulation, free from the constant stress of wondering what Alyssa was really up to. I paid my tab and walked out into the cool evening air. The mill sat dark and empty across town, a monument to dreams that had crumbled and been abandoned. But unlike the mill, I wasn't abandoned. I was just starting over. The coordinates of payback had led me through hell and back to myself. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. 6 months later, I was renovating the kitchen when Mrs. Granger knocked on my door with a casserole and the latest gossip. Nicholas, dear, did you hear about your ex-wife? What about her? She had the baby, a little girl, born 3 weeks ago in Boston. I felt a small pang of something, not regret exactly, but a kind of wistful sadness for what might have been in a different world. Is she doing well? As far as I know, though I heard she's having money troubles. Single motherhood isn't easy. No, it's not. You're better off without all that drama, if you ask me. Mrs. Granger was right, of course. I was better off. I had my business, my house, my peace of mind. I was dating a nice woman named Carol, who worked at the library and didn't play games. Life was good. But sometimes, late at night, I wondered about that little girl in Boston. I wondered if she'd grow up hearing stories about her father, whoever he turned out to be. I wondered if she'd ever know how close she'd come to having a different life entirely. Then I'd remember the lies, the manipulation, the months of hell Alyssa had put me through, and I'd know I'd made the right choice. Some coordinates lead you home, others lead you away from disaster. In the end, I'd followed mine to exactly where I needed to be.